Okay, so today's video is a topic I've been wanting to cover for a while, and yeah, here it is. Finally, the video where I basically go off on Dex and why I think it is absolutely the most useless thing in Brawl. Now, Dexterity as a concept honestly is like pretty solid, right? It's like certain characters will be slower in their attacks than others. That's pretty much like I guess the base idea for most people. I don't know the exact definition off the top of my head, but it's like, all right, whoever has like the higher dex stat theoretically should be able to throw out attacks faster and should be able to be like punished less. Well, that's not really the case. Now, if you've seen Dex nowadays, and you've probably heard a lot about it recently if you watch like other streamers and content creators like Boomy, Remy, you know, just other pro players. I shouldn't even just say like content creators, because the meta right now is basically to like remove Dex. Just whatever stat is removing Dex is just about the best stat for every character. Now, I will say, obviously, there are like certain exceptions. However, you know, if you can get rid of Dex without like losing a true combo or something, then get rid of it, because there's absolutely no reason for it. And today also I'm going to be playing a lot of the 2-Dex characters. So these characters, all 2-Dex, don't lose anything. They don't lose any sort of combo, which by the way is kind of stupid to have some sort of combo locked behind Dex. But that really seems to be like one of the main ways they make Dex like actually matter. And you know, they're kind of in a tough spot, BMG, because it's like, what do you do at this point when you have so many legends made? You can't really just go back and rework a stat without having a bunch of like issues that need to be resolved. So I'm really curious to see if they will like make some sort of adjustment, but it's gonna take a lot, like a lot, or that, you know, they can maybe like turn the recovery frames like down on higher decks like a decent amount more. Now again, that would come into play with like creating a lot of possibly broken combos, and we don't want to see like 3-4 hit true combos in this game. I feel like that's already kind of annoying to see. I mean, you see like with Cannon, the 0 to deaths that it can perform, it's kind of ridiculous, and those aren't even combos. It's just like off one dodge. Now imagine basically that like true potentially if they did mess with Dex. That would be terrible, to say the least. Not what I think, at least for me. Maybe some others would like to see that. Yeah. But even then, going back to the recovery frames, I'll probably continue the thought in the next game, but they really, and it's something I thought kind of mattered, they don't matter too much. You rarely feel them. Unless you're like a main of that weapon, you're not really going to be feeling Dex. And I would have to say the weapon I feel Dex on the most would probably have to be like Spear. I think the reason behind Dex like feeling bad on Spear, at least for me, first of all, like I said previously, it's probably has to do with the fact that I main the weapon, and so I already have like a baseline of what you know, like 5-6 Dex feels like, and so dropping below that doesn't feel good at all, because I do main Shang and Hattori, and 2v2s at the very least. I mean, I play those characters just overall a lot, and like things like Spear Sair is such an integral part of Spear that when you do take away the Dex, Spear Sair specifically, I notice feels bad, and maybe that is just placebo, but I would not be surprised if it actually is like a factor of Dex being lowered. Okay, as you saw there, I did stomp Ensig. I'll do it again. I mean, it's a true combo. Like, it's insane. Terrace has 2 true combos, by the way, on stomp, and I am playing the 2 Dex stance, which I believe gives him another speed, like Olgrim, I think. But that's a true combo right there. That's a true combo right there. And each time I do that, that's just about 40 damage, I think. Give or take, a little over, I believe. But it's kind of ridiculous. Like, I think Taros is a criminally underrated character. I think when people do play him... Oh, I messed it up. I think when people do play Taros and any other, like, low dex, like 2-dex character, I feel like they don't realize, like, just how good it is to have those stats. Like, low dex characters, the 3 dexers, Nash, Ulgrim, and Taros are just ridiculous right now. I mean, you look at what's good, which is, to be honest, everything. But you look at what they have. They have Spear, Hammer, Axe, Lance. Like, those weapons, you're going to be perfectly fine with lower decks. And like I said, Spear on Nash, when I run 2 decks Nash, that is the only time I've ever felt anything. So it's kind of crazy. Not to mention the SIGs on all those characters are also very, aside from maybe Taros, the SIGs don't make sense at all. You look at Nash and SIG on Hammer, what is it? Like, you look at Ulgrim's Axe Kit, like, and then look at the fact that he is a 2-dex character. Like, it just blows my mind, to say the least. And that actually makes me think of something. I am not 100% sure, but I almost want to say that Dex doesn't affect signatures, I think. Don't quote me on it. So that kind of brings me in to, I feel like, another point where, okay, well, if you're saying these low Dexers have, like, the best stats and are just worth, like, playing and just, like, looking at, then what about all the characters with high Dex? Well, that's not to say that characters with high Dex are bad. Like I said, there are some cases where you do gain, like, specific combos, like on Spear Sair into Enlight. On Bow, you can do, I believe it's, I forget what it is. I think it's Sair into Enlight. It requires 6 Dex. And both those require 6 Dex, the Spear one and Bow. And yeah, it's like, okay. So those are very specific instances, but they are good, to say the least. Like, if you are a Spear player, you probably know the value of using Spear Sair a lot. It is a very good move. So just getting that extra damage after is really, really strong. However, you also have to, like, ask yourself, is that actually, like, worth taking, you know, adding the Dex, like on Brynn, for example, instead of, like, allocating it to somewhere else? And I don't know. It's kind of up to you. If you're hitting a lot of Sair and Enlight, sure. I feel like that's not even the best example. Like, it's really hard to find a good example. It's funny because the character that I think would benefit the most from having, like, the Dex stance on is Kaya, because Kaya has Spear and Bow. However, Kaya is a 4-dex character, so, you know, can only go to 5 Dex. And when you only go to 5 Dex, guess what that means? You can't have those combos true. So that stance on Kaya is literally useless. Unless you, like I said, you're a main of Kaya and, like, you've played it for a long time. And when you do take away a Dex and you go down to 3 Dex with her, you might feel a bit of a difference. I think it is worth giving it a try. But yeah, also on Hammer, higher Dex Hammer, I think, does have some stuff with it. I believe maybe, like, Orb as well. Actually, no, that's a lie. Orb feels just about the same. Orb Dex is non-existent. It's one of those weapons. Same with Cannon. I think Cannon literally is not affected by Dex either. I also trolled that, but he's dead. All right, I figured to wrap it up with this final game. You know how I like to roll. Get in my 4 games, then dip. But yeah, I figured I'd play some Cannon because I kind of plan on playing on Sidra. Cannon right now is crazy, as I talked about in one of my previous videos. It is just so good right now. I mean, it's just one of those cases where, you know, if the weapon's working, then it's really good. I will say this. There is no reason to have Dex on, like, Sidra, for example, or Onyx. Like, take away any Cannon character. Just take away the Dex, man. It is literally, unless it's Isaiah, because, like, you kind of can't, I'm pretty sure. But that's aside the point. But, like, you don't feel anything at all. There's, like, sure, you will be able to tell, like, if you play, like, Lin Fei and then go down to 3 Dex Sidra. But it's, like, the punishes you get, which is, you know, what you should be going for on Cannon, they're all the same. You're still going to be getting those, like, potential big 0-to-deaths. You know, it's, like, not, it's still insane. There's not much else to, like, be said. Not only can it get that 5-hit string and possibly kill your opponent, it also just feels overall kind of, like, good to play. So, yeah. Also, Sword. I've kind of noticed Sword on 3 Dex. It doesn't feel any different. Of course, if you jump to, like, Koji, who at lowest has 7 Dex, so, like, sure, maybe you'll finish, or maybe you'll feel a little bit different, and, like, the moves that you'll be doing, like, and the combos you'll be doing, they'll feel weird when you finish them. But I don't think that should be the case. But yeah, I think there's like very specific instances where Dex matters, like I said, with like the combos and stuff. But also, I think that oh, let's see if I can hit him with it. Oh my gosh, we embarrassed him. But I also think like just labbing a bit and understanding your character specifically and whether or not it's worth removing Dex, I feel like that's a good thing to do. When you run 9 defense Roland, sure, you're not going to feel the 4 Dex at all. However, the 9 defense versus the 7 defense isn't any different. I did some testing with Cody, and if you do 9 ground pounds on a Roland with 7 or 9 defense, and then finish with the D-Light recovery, they both die then. It's not like you're dying way earlier at the 7 defense opposed to the 9 defense. They both die baseline 9 ground pounds and then 1 D-Light recovery on a Bodvar with 5 strength. So it's like you could be getting a lot more out of the speed stance because it is a middle stat instead of like, you know, a stat towards the end like this. So it's just something to keep in mind. Hopefully I explained that at least somewhat well, but here's also the stat spreads of the other characters I was using, like Nash, Taros, where's Olgrim? Olgrim, and Olgrim, probably the best stats in the game with this stance specifically, but yeah, and then Sidra as well. I mean, it's just insane. It's absurd, the stat spreads you can get now that we've come to terms with the fact that Dex really isn't that influential aside from the true combos. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if there's any other instances where you guys think Dex actually matters, or if you like think Dex just is a joke of a stat, or what they could do to rework it. I'd really like to hear what you guys have to think on this because I don't know at all, and I get asked this all the time. So thanks for watching, guys, and see ya.